Hello YouTube, this will probably be the last video of this series. 2002 Mustang auto to manual swap. This is for the 3.8 liter V6. This video will kind of pertain to really swapping any transmission though. So long story short, once I had everything done, had the PCM programmed, got everything working the way that it should, I started getting a vibration. A little bit in third gear, but more so in fourth and fifth gear. And it seemed to only be at cruising speeds. If I had it under any kind of a load, if I was accelerating, there was no vibration at all. If I let completely off the throttle, there was a little bit of a vibration, and then it would quit. Just so long as I was decelerating. As soon as I started cruising in fourth or fifth gear above about 50 mile an hour, I just started getting a really, really bad vibration. And it would follow me if I had to take it all the way up to 90 mile an hour, just vibrate like crazy. Hopefully you guys can hear me today. We are actually in the shop today at the dealership. You'll have to forgive the mess. It's the middle of January right now. I don't know what time of year you're watching this, but right now it's January and it's cold. We got the pressure washer going, all kinds of noise and racket, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay. So I started getting a nasty vibration, and I was hoping it wasn't the actual gearbox itself that was bad, because if you remember from my other video, I ended up reusing the flywheel, I ended up reusing the clutch, I ended up reusing the drive shaft, and so I knew that there were quite a few things that had changed, including the driveline angle. If your driveline came out like this, including the angle that it comes out of the driveline, with the driveline angle on the U-joints. If that changes, like if you do a lift on a truck or you lower a car, sometimes that can cause vibration issues. So I ended up replacing, put a brand new flywheel in it, brand new clutch in it. I ended up going with, what was that brand? I forget, but it was a six puck racing clutch off of Rock Auto. Pretty cheap, a little bit rough at first until I kind of got it wore in a little bit, until I got it broke in. Ended up replacing the front and the rear U-joint, ended up trying to balance the drive shaft. Didn't make any difference at all, if any. And so I ended up finally just condemning the gearbox. And so I went down to the same junkyard that I got this one from. This is actually the original that I swapped in to swap out the automatic with. Went down there, found a 2003, and the engine had thrown a rod. And so I knew that the transmission had a really good chance of being okay. Because the last one, if you remember from the video, wasn't really positive. The front end was missing off the car, but I didn't really see any body damage. The engine didn't seem to be seized. It didn't seem like it'd thrown any rods or done anything crazy like that as far as failing. And I think the reason that Mustang was in the junkyard was because of this guy right here. And had I have known that, I probably would have gone with a different unit or waited to purchase. However, I found a 2003 on Saturday, red V6, that had thrown a rod. And the body was in pristine condition, so I knew it hadn't been wrecked. So I ended up rolling the dice on it and ended up getting lucky. When I pulled it out, and I don't know that there's a difference. This one says Tree Mech, and the one that I bought about right here on the top of the case said Borg Warner. And if I remember correctly, now don't quote me on this, but I want to say that Borg Warner got the patent from Tree Mech and kind of took over operations of manufacturing these T5 transmissions. I don't know that they're any better. I don't know that they made any serious improvements or any at all. But I ended up installing it last night at about 9 o'clock here after hours at the shop. And it only took me about an hour just to swap just the gearbox was all I actually changed. I left the bell housing on from this transmission. So all I had to do was pull the 4 bolts, drop the engine mount, 4 bolts on that as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then pull the drive shaft out of the back of the transmission, pull the shifter, cleaned up the mating surface, and re-siliconed it, put it all back together, hooked up all the electrical connectors, which there's only 2 on this. There's one here and there's one here, and then there is an oxygen sensor wire that wraps over the top down onto the other side over here, and then there's a little tab to clip it to hold it in place, and then that oxygen sensor wire runs down to your exhaust, which would sit about right here if it were in the vehicle. Didn't take long at all. Drove it last night, got it all the way up to 90 miles an hour. My vibration is completely gone. So kind of a hard lesson to learn, but it's something always to remember. When you go with junkyard parts, rolling the dice. You go with factory new, you get a lot better chance. You go with something from O'Reilly or AutoZone or any other parts house, it's not as good of a chance as if you had gone with a dealership part. However, dealership's going to be your #1 most expensive. Parts house is going to be your 2nd most expensive, and junkyard is generally going to be your cheapest, especially if it's a pick and pull kind of an operation. So kind of a hard lesson to learn. This one, fortunately, this one only cost me about $200 with everything, with the bell housing, the shifter, flywheel, clutch cable, everything else that I absolutely needed to kind of complete the build. And this one, all I ended up doing was just pulling the gearbox. It ended up costing me the exact same amount this time. However, it only took me about 20 minutes, and that's mostly because the exhaust, the catalytic converters sit about right here on either side of the transmission, and they were already cut off because they can't sell used catalytic converters. They had already been cut off and pulled out, and so it was real easy to access all these bolts. I didn't even need any wobbly sockets or anything. I just ended up needing a 15mm wrench to crack these loose, spun them out by hand, and then just by myself, laying underneath, just bench pressed it out, shoved it straight back, dropped it straight down, dropped it on the ground, drug it out, and good to go. So kind of a hard lesson to learn, but I mean, you always got to remember that there's a reason. You kind of get what you pay for. Sometimes you can get gold. For $200 at the junkyard, you can get a whole transmission. And other times you can pay $200, do all the work to pull it, and you end up with a giant, well, paperweight at this point. This one's probably going to end up sitting in my garage for now. I may end up getting it rebuilt. Had a quote on it just to rebuild the gearbox. It's about $1,000, which really isn't bad. Considering trying to replace one. I went to the Ford dealership, which is actually where we're at right now, where I work, and they're obsolete. They can't even order this for me anymore. So $1,000 to get a trans rebuilt. It comes with, I want to say it was like a 9-month warranty is what the guy quoted me, but not bad for $1,000. But yeah, hopefully you guys could hear me. If not, I'll have to remake this video once everyone goes home and it's a little bit quieter around here. Yeah, I hope this helps you guys out.